Good afternoon, everyone. Tiger Football Live's statistics for the game Henryetta at Cushing. Tale of two halves in that game. In the first half, Henryetta came back in the second quarter, gave a little bit of a scare to the Tigers. Halftime score of 35-12 doesn't really show that momentum is starting to change. What we really see is that the first half was a tale of two quarters. First quarter, Tigers dominated, held them to 73 total yards, whereas in the second quarter, they allowed 151 yards. And the even bigger, more telling ones, first quarter, no touchdowns, 2 turnovers for the Knights. Whereas in the second quarter, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Totally reversed those two key numbers. And that put a bit of a scare into us going into the second quarter, going into the second half of play. Second half belonged almost entirely to the Tigers. They held the Knights to just 68 total yards in the second half, 63 of which came on the last drive against the second and third stringers, which means the starters were held to only 5 yards on 3 possessions. That's 8 possessions in the first half, 3 total in the second half. In those 3 possessions, they didn't hold the ball long except for their final drive. Their 2 third-quarter possessions, 2 minutes 26 seconds time of possession as opposed to 9 minutes 34 for the Tigers. Scoring by quarters shows just how thoroughly the Tigers did dominate this game, limiting Henryetta to scores in the second and fourth quarter only, fourth quarter score being the last one of the game. Tigers scored 21 in the opening period and 14 more before the half, came out of the half hard with 21 points, 7 points in the fourth quarter by the second stringers, total of 63 for the Tigers. Quick look at the overall game stats shows why Cushing dominated time of possession so much. 236 rushing yards as opposed to 118 for Henryetta. Passing yards basically even. The Knights from Henryetta had 11 more yards on 1 more completion, 5 more pass attempts. They also had an interception. Overall, both sides ran about the same number of plays. Penalties favored Cushing, 6 for 40 as opposed to 11 for 81 for the Knights. Everything else was clearly Cushing, including 2 sacks for a total of 14 yards lost by the Tigers. Quick overview of the Knights' standout players. Number 4, Blake Johnson, their running back, really stood out. 11 carries, 69 total yards. His long was 44, which was his touchdown. He averaged 6.27 yards per carry. Johnson also figured in the passing game, where he had 4 receptions for a total of 64 yards and 1 more touchdown. But the big name in the receiving was definitely Devin Longan, number 7. 7 receptions, 100 total yards, 1 touchdown, including a 49-yarder. He averaged 14.29 yards per catch. And that's a look at the Knights' standouts. Standouts in the Tiger passing game include Bingham Hightower, who was 16 of 21 for 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a quarterback rating of 138. Very high, very strong. He spread the ball around. He had 4 separate receivers. Number 6, Eddie Martin, had 3 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown. Trevor Varendel brought in 1 for 10 yards. Cole McKnight was his favorite target of the night. 12 targets, 10 receptions, 135 yards. He had 26-yard long and a touchdown. Finally, Gage Stallworth also hauled in 2 passes for 32 yards, averaging 16 yards per catch. But the real story of the night was the Tiger rushing game. Bingham Hightower had 1 carry for 6 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Lutali came in late with 2 carries, 31 yards, including a 30-yard touchdown to bring the fans to their feet. Hunter Boykin added 2 for 19 yards, 9.5 yards average. Justice Thomas had 9 carries for 46 yards, including a touchdown. But of course, the real person that everyone wants to focus on is Gage Stallworth. 16 carries, 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging over 9 yards per carry, which is why other teams ought to focus on him. Good job, Tigers. This has been Statistics. I hope you enjoyed.